Today's theme is communal movement. So we're going to be talking about the science and the experience of moving together. And I just want to go ahead and take a minute to introduce our guests first. So Maria Brees is going to be teaching yoga today and giving us some insights on her practice and her class. And she is an Illinois-based attorney. She works with Macaulay and Lyman LLC. She works mostly on with real estate or developers, investors, and lenders in project development and finance in the renewable energy sector. She's a certified yoga and meditation teacher with a focus on mindful self-compassion. She will be leading the yoga class today. We have Stephanie Lewis, who is also a certified mindfulness, meditation, and Qigong instructor. She's a national board certified health and wellness coach and also a government attorney. She is on a variety of different boards and public service organizations, and she is in the Washington, D.C. area. Jessie Spressart is the founder and managing director of Optia Consulting. Prior to founding Optia, Jessie was in-house at a law firm. She's an ICF accredited executive coach, and she holds master's degrees from Fordham and St. Andrews. And she is coordinating our Peloton ride today. And then we have Nora Minno, and Nora is the Director of Wellbeing at O'Melveny. She's also a registered dietitian and a certified dietitian nutritionist. And she is, as well as being a certified personal trainer, she's a volunteer instructor for FitGrit, and she's been featured in a lot of national publications on fitness and diet and nutrition. So she will be leading our SitGrit workout, which is the seated workout for really everyone of all abilities and kind of levels of movement. And then we have Ella Wexler-Mathai, and she has been a dancer all her life. She'll be leading our Soca Fusion dance class, and she's studied under Martha Gray, Mariana Harkless, Judy Dworin, Leslie Farlow, and Martha Perilla, and the Marcia Charles Dance Theater Company. She has a wide performance and teaching background, and her specialty area is working with youth on confidence and determination through dance. So that is our panel today. We are really, really, really excited to get started. And just so that you have a general understanding of the flow of this program, we are going to just talk for a few minutes. We're going to let our panelists answer some questions, and then we're going to go ahead and move into the breakout rooms, which will guide you kind of through that process to make sure everyone gets where they would like to be. So before we get started, Jessie, I'm going to ask you one more time to just put the Peloton ride in the chat, just so that if folks want to start getting that lined up while we are talking, they can go ahead and do that. I'm not a Peloton person, but that's a little bit of a different process than our breakout rooms. So we will go ahead and get that started. And then I'd also just like to invite you, if you have questions in the chat that you would like to ask, you can go ahead and put those in the chat, and we will try to get to those questions as well. And Caroline is on here helping me. Caroline, if you see a question that I don't see, feel free to kind of jump in and feed it as well. Okay, so we are going to start with just a little bit of a conversation about why we focused on communal movement in particular. And when I'm listening to some of the other speakers answer questions, I'll go ahead and pop our physical activity guide into the chat so that you can download that as well. I also want to invite you to use this as an opportunity to participate in our participation challenge. We have some really great prizes. So this is an awesome opportunity to take a photo of whatever you're doing, or just log in and just note that you participated, and then you'll be entered to win some really kind of fun prizes. So obviously our theme for today is physical well-being. And so physical well-being, I think we tend to think of it in somewhat of a narrow way. We might think of it as, just running or doing yoga or getting exercise or eating well or getting sleep. And today we're kind of thinking about, because our overall theme for this week is on community and connection, we're really thinking about how do we mix that physical well-being with that sense of community and belonging as well. And you may have seen a lot in the news lately about lawyers and loneliness, right? The legal profession and loneliness. So this is kind of just one way of thinking about that. And, many group activities boost our sense of belonging, and many different types of exercise boost our physical well-being. But research shows actually that doing things synchronously can build even stronger social connections and create a greater sense of well-being overall. It even has some kind of quirky health implications. There's a study done on rowers showing that their tolerance for pain, their pain threshold was elevated, right, to a greater degree than when they were just sort of practicing in solo form, when they actually were rowing together. And so these types of things like rowing, like dancing, there's been studies on line dancing, even on choir singing, where there's sort of synchronous movement involved, simply even sort of tapping fingers in unison, or rocking in rocking chairs, right? When people rock in rocking chairs, they tend to sync up their back and forth movement, right? So they're doing that together. And scientists are just starting to understand kind of how and why this type of movement has such unique implications for well-being. So they've noticed this over a long period of time. There's been studies done on kind of groups in the military, on marching bands, right, on choir singing. So they've noticed that people tend to have this greater sense of belonging, this greater sense that they would do something for someone else, that they feel like they're a part of a community. And the evidence is starting to show that there's really a complicated physical and psychological interplay that allows us to bond in a different way. So according to psychology and neuroscience, the social well-being impact is essentially caused by like a blurring of the lines between ourselves and others, right? So that is basically, we become highly aware of what others are doing, and we start to think of them as integrated with our own selves. So this has really, obviously the physical health and well-being implications, the social health and well-being implications. It also has implications on things like diminishing bias and impacting how we think about others. So studies done in Eastern Europe on people walking in sync together, right, found that after people engaged in those activities, they tended to have less bias against, traditionally groups that might traditionally be kind of less represented in society, and where there traditionally might be more bias occurring. So that level of social bonding has a tendency sort of to diminish bias and othering. So that is kind of the overview of why we are focusing on this today. And so I will talk less and go ahead and hear from some others a little bit more. And Maria, I thought that I would ask you first about how you see this with respect to yoga, right? Like, how does this come up for you, and how does it come up with your classes and your students?
Yes, thank you so much, Tara. I'm honored to be here. And what you've touched upon is this process of mirror neurons. And what we're seeing in yoga in particular that one of the main benefits of yoga and mindfulness practice is the strengthening of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is responsible for our relaxation response. And we're discovering that that benefit of strengthening the vagus nerve and having an easier time of moving into rest and digest is enhanced when in community through what scientists are calling co-regulation. This is especially true for trauma survivors. And I think being trauma-informed in this area is also really important. So that vagus nerve does the rest and digest response, but trauma will disrupt that function of that vagus nerve. So when a person is in chronic fight or flight mode, the stress hormones are coming in, it's shutting down digestion, it's increasing your heart rate, and you have blood going to your arms and legs so you can fight back or run away. What happens over an extended period of time is being in that heightened state of fight or flight weakens the vagus nerve because it no longer has to work. It actually wants to shut down operation of your digestion. Recent studies are showing as well that a higher percentage of law students are having symptoms or showing signs of complex PTSD from childhood relational trauma. And what we're finding in yoga is early research now is just coming out showing that polyvagal theory is discovering we can best balance our nervous systems in community. So when others are regulating themselves in our company, it helps us to regulate ourselves and vice versa. This is called co-regulation, and it happens exactly through what you're describing as the mirror neurons. We first discovered this back in 1980 with a scientist from Italy who found that when one monkey ate a peanut, another observing monkey, just watching that monkey eat the peanut, his brain fired in the exact same way as if both monkeys were eating the peanut. And so through attention, our brains are linked. So mirror neurons give us this scientific understanding for how we share our experiences collectively, and especially for survivors of relational trauma, finding a safe and supportive community can be critical for healing through this co-regulation.
Thanks, Maria. That was a really great explanation of co-regulation. And I think for many people who practice yoga or other types of synchronous movement, you have a sense of that, a feeling of it, but it's super interesting and helpful to understand the science behind it. So Ella, I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask you, how do you see this, particularly maybe with that that belonging and that integration piece, because you work with children as well. So are there ways that you see that come up? You also teach a form of dance that sort of pulls from different types of backgrounds, right? Different traditions.
So you're saying to speak to the sense of belonging within communal dance, or is something?
Yeah. I mean, you can just what your experience is, it particularly as you watch. Sometimes I think kids are a really good little incubator, a little test pod for how adults react as well.
So yeah, I teach a range of ages. Youngest would be 3, and then I always say grandma and grandpa are invited as well. And I've seen grandma and grandpa in my classes. So yeah, no, but when it comes to sense of belonging, yeah, I mean, I studied that in undergrad. I see it all the time. It's just a part of it. It's not even like I don't even think about it half the time. You just see everyone interacting with each other. I love the classes where you see the young ones and literally the range of ages within one class, because then you're exchanging so much in that space, right? The young ones are looking up to the older ones like, oh, I can do this, right? Like, as like this is a narrative of dance, right? Or, oh, I can exercise, take care of myself in that way. And then the older ones are looking down like, oh, I have a sense of responsibility with these younger people. And a variety of ways. But yeah, there's definitely a sense of belonging that happens with all ages, across generations, within the same generation. Like I'm about to go teach students after this. And they are 6 to 9-year-olds. And I love the moments when I always pretty much like in a curriculum wise, like I start where I teach the foundations, but then I give it to them like, all right, now it's your time to create choreography, your time to lead warm up and stuff. And the way they have to learn skills at that age too, and help each other through challenges of, you know, ego stuff or just confusion and stuff like that. They end up by the end coming out of it shining, and they really, again, learn to work together. So any age, but I love to see it with the younger people when they really help each other versus just like tearing each other down. But yeah, I've experienced it personally. Side note, one more thing I grew up in a dance organization in Cambridge, Massachusetts, named Jamnastics. It was rooted in hip hop, and then we explored other styles as well. But that was a family for me. I'm also adopted, and that was that program. I was in it the majority of my life, well, I guess half my life at this point. But yeah, that was a family. So movement is beyond, right, just the physical aspect of exercise and wellness. It's like, oh, we're tapping into those belongings of family and learning and all these other things. So for sure.
Thanks for sharing that part of your story, Ella. That's a great example. And so Nora, I'm going to jump to you and ask, you know, sometimes I think there's some barriers to entry, right, for communal movement. Sometimes it's physical barriers, sometimes it's time issues, sometimes it's sort of where to start. Do you have any advice for kind of how overcoming some of those obstacles for people who might want to try something new or different or get involved in some type of communal movement?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tara. And as you mentioned, I'm an instructor for Sit Grit, and that's a class that I'll be kind of sampling today. And what we really realized in starting this organization during the pandemic was that, well, so many of us were at home, maybe riding a Peloton or jumping on kind of the plethora of streaming workout services that became available. There were many of those who had limited mobility or just various disabilities that kept them from partaking in physical activity. And we all know the benefits of that, whether communal or not, just how it boosts our mood. And especially for those with disability and folks with spinal cord injuries is the population that we serve mostly at Sit Grit. There's a lot of physical repercussions that come with lack of movement, for example, loss of bladder control or loss of blood flow to extremities and just various things. I mean, you name it, that can result of that. So inclusivity has always been a passion of mine. When it comes to physical fitness, coming from the dance world as well, there was, if you didn't have the right body, you weren't included, right? Sometimes in a lot of cases. So that's always been a mission of mine. And so that's what we've tried to offer as part of Sit Grit. And so to answer kind of your initial question, I think for those, whether kind of whatever ability level you're at, if you're kind of scared to get started or scared to partake, I think these online streaming services are fantastic because you can do things in the comfort of your own space, in the comfort of your own home, and try things out maybe that you just don't feel like you want to go in front of a group and do right away. I understand that takes a lot of courage, and there are some who just physically feel better and safer in their own home. So I think that's a fantastic way to get started. Also joining a community. I'm also an instructor at Daily Burn, and we have a fantastic community through that streaming service, and folks will we hold each other accountable, which is really cool. And a lot of times, again, you can do things in the privacy of your own home, but having somebody that you can text and connect with and say, hey, how's this going for you? Just on your journey, it is a really fantastic way to get started. And the last thing I'll say is workouts don't have to be long to be effective. Even, there's a recent article in the New York Times about 2-minute short bursts of energy and how those have major impacts on our cardiovascular health and our brain health. We know some HIIT style workouts, 10 minutes or less, can improve, again, physical function, your VO2 max, your mood, and how you feel. So I always just like to tell people, find what you enjoy and how you like to move, and just do it for a little bit at a time, and then build and build, and that will really become part of your routine. So last thing I'll say is comparison is going to be the biggest enemy of your progress in this space. So I find myself getting caught up in that too, sometimes in the New York fitness scene of, oh, so-and-so is doing this type of workout and they're doing this type of workout, so I'll try it. I'm like, I don't really enjoy that. That's not how my body likes to move. So finding a way that your body likes to move, I think is the most important thing, and the way that you'll keep with it the longest, which is really, the most important thing here, longevity.
Thanks so much, Nora. That's really helpful. And I really like that you focus on the movement piece. I'm always trying to move a little bit away from the word exercise and really think just about getting people moving in whatever way is comfortable for them. Okay, Stephanie, I'm gonna go to you next and ask you to talk a little bit about integrating your practice and your teaching with your career, and how you find the time and how you work that in. If you'd like to explain to folks a little bit what Qigong is, that might be helpful for people who might not be familiar.
Okay, thanks, Tara. So Qigong is another form of mindful movement like yoga. It's an ancient Chinese practice designed really to cultivate your life force energy. So Qigong stands for, basically loosely translated, energy work. So we are working with the meridian systems through movement to, yes, Crystal is saying Tai Chi. Yes, Tai Chi is a form of Qigong. There's more than 7,000 forms of Qigong, and Tai Chi is one of them, and it involves movement and breathing and posture and intentionality and so on and so forth. And it's a wonderful practice for a number of reasons. One, it's a gentle moving practice, mindful movement practice. And it is one you can do anywhere. First of all, you can do it sitting, you can do it standing, and it's something you can do at home or in the office, right? If you have some gentle movement, you can get up. We spend a lot of time sitting in front of the computer. So when we want to take our breaks and stand and move, we can get up and we can do some gentle Qigong movement right there next to our desk. How do I work it in? I work it in the mornings and the evenings, and sometimes during the day as well. So for me, it's a great practice for getting out of the head. So it's a great practice to do before you do your sitting meditation. So you're getting into your body, you're out of your head, where we spend most of our time as lawyers, right? And into our body. And that can prepare us for a calmer mind for our sitting meditation as well, or even, quite frankly, for sleep as we unwind the day.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I was actually floored to know that there are so many different types of Qigong. I did not have any idea that there were that many different times. And okay, Jessie, bring it on home. So the thing I think that's really interesting about Peloton is it's like synchronous movement and a community, and it creates a different, I think, kind of experience sometimes than a class would. So if you'd like to maybe talk a little bit about your experience and what you like about it. I know there are some communities of lawyers, Peloton lawyer groups and stuff. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about that, and maybe if you want to dip into in your few minutes talking about kind of managing stress and with this as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will speak from my experience, primarily as somebody who lost a lot of, as many of us did during the pandemic, right? Ability to go out and be with other people and that connection. And as we know, right, we saw it in the news, Peloton really kind of had its moment because it's a space that you can get on the bike and do a ride. You can get on a live ride. You can do a ride that's on demand, which is what we're going to do today. And you will see people who are riding with you, right? Which is really fun. And going to one of the things that Nora said about comparison and competition is sometimes being counterproductive. What I have learned to do is use that leaderboard, is what they call it, as a way to encourage the other people who are on the ride with me. and to get encouragement from them and really find that connection with people. Some people like to use it as a, how far ahead am I from other folks? I am not that person. I am not that, like, I mean, I'm reasonably fit, but I'm also 4'11" and I'm never going to be at the top of the leaderboard with, like, you know, the really big burly folks. So, right. So it needs to be a space where we can all find our own acceptance. One of the things I like about the Peloton organization is that they have so many different ways to interact. They have rides, they have runs, they have rowing, so you could get that great experience. They have yoga, they have meditation, so many different ways that you can connect with the platform, but also with other people. You're right, there are several communities that have popped up. So you'll see that I encourage everybody who's on the ride to use Wellbeing Week in Law as your tag so that we can find each other, right? And that's how we find that connection. So there's Peloton Law Moms, which is a huge, huge, huge group. There's other lawyer groups. And there's so many, see, we've got one here in the audience here. Excellent, excellent. And so it's not just a space for exercising together, but it's also a space for connecting in other ways as well. So that the exercise is really that key to connection in other ways. So going to your question about stress, I find that moving my body is one of the best ways for me to process the stress that I'm experiencing at any moment. Going exactly to what Maria was saying at the beginning of our time, right? Finding that way to let our bodies know that we can complete a stress cycle and move out of the threat response, moving into a rest and digest space. Moving our bodies is such a great way to do that, which is why I'm so glad that we're kicking off Wellbeing Week with this communal movement. I love how many different ways of doing that we have here today. And it's just such a great reminder that we can do what works for us and find what works for us and find that for ourselves, but also to connect with other people. So I think it's fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessie. Okay, we are going to let our instructors go and start to kind of find their breakout rooms, and I'll give everyone else instructions. And instructors, just don't forget that you are you have the ability to record. So if you don't mind hitting record. If anyone in your group would like to take a screenshot of the group together, that would also be great. We'd love to see that. So if you forget, you forget, but if you remember, that would be wonderful. Thank you for your time, and you can all start to go. Remember, Peloton folks, you won't be on Zoom. You'll just be going to your Peloton and finding the ride that Jessie gave you. Everyone else, you are going to start to move into breakout rooms. You are going to find the breakout rooms yourselves, and you're going to choose the one that you would like. If you find yourself in the wrong breakout room, you can come back here. If you need help, you can stay here and we will help you get to the breakout room that you would like to be in. And you will be all dismissing yourselves from your breakout rooms.